All right, back again. We only got two more events actually, so this should be okay. So the next one comes in 1859. So again, you've got the Republican Party forms. You got the Dred Scott decision emboldening Southern slaveholders, really angering the North. And then in 1859, you have John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, which is this guy, John Brown, who used violence to take on slavery. He had this big plan that they were going to um, basically take all the guns and arm the slaves and start a revolt in Virginia. So once again, it's the federal. This is Harper's Ferry, Virginia, and he's stopped pretty easily right away by Colonel Robert E. Lee, who becomes the leader of the Confederate Army later on in the Civil War. But they defeat Brown. He's put on trial and hanged. And the North is excited. They say that he's a martyr and that he died for a good cause and he represents like the ideology of the North, and the South see him as a terrorist, and they get really upset with the North's reaction, be like, how can you support this, or how are you not just super upset by how terrible a thing this is, and now they start to distrust the Union even more. So not only is like conceptually they feel like people are coming after slavery, but now they also feel like they have to be worried about violence coming from the North as well, which is something that upsets them a lot. So that's going to lead to further escalation of tension between the North and the South. So the last straw. Oh shoot! Why doesn't that go away? Goodness. I think you know what you're doing. Should be a pen up here. Probably is. Anyway, um, since I'm messing around with the pen, why don't I just do this? All right. So don't worry about that right now. One big thing that I didn't really show you, but you can see if you take a look at this slide, that slave states are just losing political power over time. And they feel their power, they used to have a ton of power politically, both in the executive and in Congress, and that's just going away and going away and going away. And suddenly, by the time you get to 1860, that the last election before the South secedes, you've got a whole bunch more representatives from free states than you do from slave states, and six more senators. So basically, the free states have a monopoly or have a super majority in Congress, and then now they lose the presidency as well. They have the first Republican president is elected in Abraham Lincoln. So election of 1860, Abraham Lincoln is the red, John Breckinridge is green, Stephen Douglas is blue, and then you got John Bell, the Constitutional Union Party, in orange. So you have I want to say it's backwards. Don't worry about that though. But basically, Abraham Lincoln winning less than 40% of the popular vote gets enough electoral college votes to win, and now um, they have a Republican president. So the South is really upset about this. They feel like this is the last straw. We're completely powerless politically now, and we're going to lose all our power. And eventually, Lincoln's going to want to get rid of the slaves, and the Republicans are going to force that on us. And this is terrible. So in December, right after the election, South Carolina secedes. Then in January, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana secede, and then in February, Texas. And then Lincoln is inaugurated on March 4th, 1861, and you have Arkansas, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia also leave at that time. And the Confederacy is kind of like born at that point. During the war, these Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland, they're border states. These are slave states that remain loyal to the Union, but they were slave states. So originally, the war was not necessarily about slavery, it was about getting the Union back together. And then after the Emancipation Proclamation, the tone of the war kind of changes, which we got to in the station's activity. So I like to do this. You definitely will probably see something like this again. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But thinking about what was the greatest cause, what was like the most immediate, what led to the greatest amount of conflict. Were there some of these events that caused other events to happen? Like, for example, um, did the Kansas Nebraska Act like kind of lead to the election of Abraham Lincoln? I think you can make an argument that that's true. Kansas Nebraska Act led to the development of the Republican Party, and Abraham Lincoln's the first Republican president. Compromise of 1850 is the thing that kind of throws this all in motion. I mean, everybody, it kind of polarizes the North and the South. So you could argue that that's important, but you could also argue that it was a compromise, so it might not be the greatest example. So things to think about. No right or wrong answer necessarily, but it's just about how you support it with the evidence and show your understanding of the time period. So that's it for causes of the Civil War. I hope that helps kind of refresh things. Let me know if there's other things that you want. I might go over maybe one with the battles as well. All right. Take care. Sayonara.